Miraculous, over the years, has made quite a few dubious choices in regard to its plot and its characters, but what they did to Chloe might just be the most controversial thing they've ever done. She somehow managed to become one of the most hated and one of the most loved characters in the whole show. And I mean, loved. Her fan base is intense. And I can't really blame them for being that way after all the shit they've had to deal with from, you know who. Since there is so much craziness surrounding Chloe, I wanted to do a full video going through what exactly happened to her character, what went wrong, and what I think they could have done better with her. First, I want to briefly go through the arcs of her character, starting with Season 1. So, Season 1 Chloe is pretty much a classic high school mean girl. Her main role is just to be mean to Marinette and her friends, but her meanness here is mainly played for jokes. She's also responsible for a large amount of the akumatizations in Season 1. However, that's not to say that the show doesn't give her any depth this season. She does get a few moments here and there where we get to see a little glimpse at a nicer side of her. One of her defining positive traits in Season 1 is her admiration for Ladybug. We mainly get to see this in the episode Antibug. Towards the start of the episode, Ladybug finds out that Chloe likes to dress up as her, and Chloe's butler tells her that it's because she idolizes her. Later in the episode, when Ladybug rejects Chloe by calling her a liar, Chloe is genuinely hurt, enough so to be akumatized into Antibug. When she gets turned back to normal and they reconcile, Chloe also takes Ladybug's advice of working things out with Sabrina seriously. She doesn't exactly say sorry, but she does give Sabrina a brooch, which might be baby steps, but it still shows that she is capable of making an effort. Season 2, however, is where Chloe's redemption arc really kicks off. Despair Bear is the episode where we really start to get some insight into her character. It starts out with Adrian threatening to end his friendship with her unless she starts being nice to people. Adrian is someone that Chloe genuinely cares for, being her oldest friend, so she actually makes an effort for his sake. Later in the episode, she gets this flashback scene that really just speaks volumes about her character. It shows her being left by her mother and finding consolation in the teddy bear that her father gave her. This really helps solidify what we already know about her relationship with her dad up to this point, which is that he's always just relied on buying her things instead of actually properly raising her. Her parents' influence is the biggest reason for her cruel behaviour throughout the series. Since Andre never punished her when she was a child, she became spoiled and self-centered. It also explains why her love language is so materialistic, as it's the only kind of affection she's ever really known. Andre is just an awful parent, and I've always found it really weird that this never gets properly addressed by the show. The closest thing that Chloe has to a real parental figure is her butler Armand, and as for her mum, I will talk about her in a minute. This episode also again shows Chloe's admiration for Ladybug, as she does one of the first genuinely heroic things she's done in the whole series by saving Ladybug from a possessed cat noir. Then if we skip forwards a few episodes to Zombie Zoo, we see Chloe save Ladybug again, this time by sacrificing herself so that she gets turned into one of those kiss zombies instead of Ladybug. When the Akuma gets defeated, Chloe even takes responsibility and properly apologises to Miss Bustier. Something I always found quite interesting is Chloe's attachment to female authority figures, like Ladybug and her teacher. Whether it's intentional or not, it does a really good job at foreshadowing her one-sided relationship with her mum. Speaking of her mum, we now get to Star Queen, where we finally meet her, and oh my god, she is awful. Her behaviour towards Chloe is undebatably emotional abuse. She ignores her, forgets her name, and just generally belittles her. It becomes obvious where Chloe gets all her worst behaviours from, as she attempts to emulate her mum and earn her affection. Despite all her attempts, however, her mum continues to disregard her and favours Marinette, offering to take her to New York instead of Chloe. All of this eventually leads to her acting out and transforming into Queen Bee in front of everyone, then getting akumatized into Queen Wasp. However, once she is de-akumatized, she does willingly give back the Miraculous and apologises to Ladybug and Cat Noir. To me, the end of this episode is absolutely one of the saddest moments in the whole series. My heart actually broke when Chloe asked her mum why she doesn't love her. However, the way they end the scene is really odd to me, because Marinette gets them to reconcile in a not so great way in my opinion, as Chloe's only able to hold her mother's attention when emulating her cruelty. And it's not even played as a sad thing. The episode tries to play it as like a heartwarming, funny moment, and it's just really weird tonally. I really hated this as the conclusion to the episode, as it kind of just brushes off the abuse we've seen Chloe be subjected to by her mum. After this episode, we get a few more Chloe moments in Season 2, mainly in Heroes Day when Ladybug trusts her with the Miraculous again and she proves herself to be useful. But apart from that, there's nothing too important, so I'll just skip into Season 3 now. In the episode Miraculous, Chloe starts to become insecure about not being given the Be Miraculous by Ladybug, as Ladybug has failed to communicate to Chloe why she can't use the Miraculous. Lila then feeds into these insecurities, leading to Hawkmoth trying to akumatize Chloe. However, Chloe manages to resist and defies Hawkmoth, which is really amazing because I'm pretty sure this is the first time in the series that anyone has done that. She really shines the whole episode, especially her fight with Mayura, where she again resists temptation. However, from here on out, everything kind of starts to go downhill. Despite all of the positive growth she's had and her deepening complexity, all of this is completely destroyed in Heart Hunters, where she chooses to work with Hawkmoth. I cannot stress how much I hate this episode along with Miracle Queen. It's like her progression has been completely reset. It's abrupt and it feels more like a plot device than something organic. I'm not going to go too in depth about Season 4 onwards, as by that point the writing is well and truly awful. Chloe goes from being a complex character with a compelling backstory to a one-dimensional mean girl who's far worse than her Season 1 self. There's this one scene in Season 5 where Chloe doesn't know the definition of the word generous, even though she's literally used that word before in Despair Bear, so it's just pure flanderization. Thomas Astruc claims that Chloe was never meant to have a redemption arc, and that her story was supposed to be about how not everyone deserves redemption. I do believe that a story like that could work, but the way it's done here does not work in the slightest. Especially considering that other characters who have done far worse things than Chloe have gone redeemed, namely Andre and Felix. Let me name for you just a few of the things that Felix has done without being akumatized. Okay, so he's tried to forcibly kiss Ladybug without her consent, he's given all of the Miraculouses to Gabriel, and he stalked Kagami. And yet, he gets redeemed whilst Chloe is condemned as evil. When it comes to Chloe, it's like Thomas has some sort of personal, visceral hatred for her. He said some wild things in his tweets, and I kind of have to mention them here. To start with, we have this tweet here, where he says that Chloe is not a victim of abuse. And this is just plain wrong, because despite what Thomas might think, child neglect and conditional affection are absolutely types of emotional abuse. And Chloe's mom definitely exhibits them. He even takes this further by comparing Chloe herself to an abusive partner and comparing her fans to rape apologists. This is all pretty disgusting stuff to say, and it shows that he lacks any actual understanding of the topics. In this tweet here, he compares Chloe to Trump, which is actually insane, just insane. I don't really have anything else to say about that one. I'm going to stop there with the tweets because there are hundreds of them and it would take hours to get through them all. I hope you get the general gist of just how stupid and immature most of them are. It's really interesting how Thomas and the fanbase see Chloe's character in completely different ways. I believe that the main reason for this is because Thomas wanted Chloe to be a representation of a very specific type of evil, but he failed to execute this well. He wanted some personification of the selfish ruling class, the people who are in control, who stomp on those below them. It's why her last name is Bourgeois, and it's why he's compared her to Trump. However, Chloe completely fails as an allegory for this. How can she be representative of a corrupt systematic authority when she's a 14-year-old girl whose only real power comes from the influence of her neglectful parents? Thomas tries to humanize her only to again shove her back into this little archetypal role, and it's really jarring to watch. If he wanted a villain to represent these themes, then her dad would have been a much better fit. I would also argue that her whole arc sends out a pretty bad message about child abuse. Her and Adrian both face neglect by their respective parents, but while Adrian responds to this by internalizing it and expressing himself as Cat Noir, Chloe lashes out. These are both very valid and very real reactions to trauma. So when Chloe's condemned by the narrative, it feeds into this stigma around not acting like a perfect abuse victim. The introduction of Zoe kind of just exacerbates all of these issues. Her creation is like a personal jab to Chloe fans, showing us what could have been if Chloe got her redemption arc. She swoops in as this perfect replacement who's here to rub salt in the wound of Chloe's character assassination. Okay, so I've pretty much gone to the end of my critiques, so I thought that I'd finish the video in a more cheery way. So I wanted to come up with some potential directions that Chloe's character could have been taken in that might have worked better. To start with, it would have been great to get more of a focus on her relationship with her parents. It would have been nice to see her realise that her admiration for her mother was misplaced, and realise that the way she was treated was not okay. She could have gradually unlearned the behaviours that she picked up from Audrey and maybe gotten a healthier mother figure in the form of Miss Bustier, as it's already been established that Chloe has some affection for her. It would also create a really beautiful narrative about found family instead of creating a stigma around abuse victims. Going back to the wider themes of class and corruption that Thomas seemed to have wanted to include, we could have seen Chloe choosing to break from the cycle perpetuated by her parents, specifically her father in this case, as he has been depicted as being a corrupt politician. I'd love to see her acknowledging her own privilege and eventually using it for good. I would have also liked to see her relationship with Marinette slowly develop to become a more positive one. Before Chloe's character was destroyed, they had this fun little frenemies thing going on, and I think that's a great dynamic to have in the series. Chloe didn't need to be perfectly good or completely evil. Taking her down the route of an anti-hero who's slowly learning would have been far more interesting to see and added the complexity that Thomas claims to have in his series. Okay, so we've reached the end of the video, so if you're still here then thank you so much for watching. I'm super new to YouTube and this is actually my second video, so I don't really know what I'm doing yet. But if you did enjoy this, then I'd really appreciate it if you stuck around and maybe subscribed, so see you later.